Hello. All my cords are all over the place. Okay. How is everyone today? Okay. I can hear myself, so everything seems to be working. For some reason, it was kept disconnecting and reconnecting for some reason. But everything seems to be working now, so it does not matter. I am back to streaming on Tuesdays, though. At least, hopefully. We will see. Oh, as always, trigger warnings are in the description. Excuse me. I do try to keep those updated as we go through. Oh, and while you're in the description, I do have a link to stickers I've made if you want to check those out. Otherwise, I think that's it. We'll just jump right in. I don't know how long we're gonna stream today. Probably, at least an hour, but I do have things I need to do after stream, so I don't know. But we'll do Park's story first. Oh, it's been 4 years. Okay, sorry. My name is Park. I am 14 years old. I live in a mental hospital. The vice president of the hospital was Dr. Lee. He was also my supervising doctor ever since I had been sent here. He had been raping me. I thought he was 10. I used to cry out loud in my room and hide, but they would scream at me to shut up. I tried keeping a diary to relieve my stress, but I realized, why do I keep disconnecting and reconnecting so much today? I should check again, make sure everything's working before we get too far. It looks like it's working. Yeah, I can hear myself. It looks like it's working. I don't know why it's being... Whatever. As long as it works, I guess I don't care. When I was feeling extremely desperate, I would pick up the pen and stab myself with it. I forced myself not to cry no matter how painful it was. It was an exercise. After a while, I gradually became numb to the pain. That way, it would be less painful when I had to go to that room again. Most of the nurses in this hospital were women, but I did come to know one male nurse. His name was Lee Nyongjello. The other nurses said that he was the nephew of Lee, and that was the only reason he got the job. Every Tuesday night, he would take me to Lee's office. He would then just wait outside until it was over. He would then bring me back to my room. One day he noticed my scars. He could tell that those were not caused by his uncle. After he found out that I had been hurting myself, he decided to confiscate my pen. Coward. He knew what his uncle had been doing to me. I also knew that he read my diaries too. He was too afraid to stop his uncle, but he would take away my pen. I closed the door. I threw myself at his feet, held onto his legs, and began crying at the top of my lungs. As expected, he panicked and touched my head with his hands, trying to console me. Since that moment, he had become an ally of mine. As an ally, Lee Myung-chol would sometimes use his limited power to get me some small privileges. For instance, I could walk in the garden a little longer than the others. If I could hold on a little longer, a ray of hope was beginning to show. I heard a piece of horrible news. My mom had died. I overheard it from the nurses. None of them would even tell me the news to my face, but they would gossip about me behind my back, commenting on what a poor child. Pathetic sympathy. I just wanted Mom. For the last 2 years, no one had ever visited me. Why had Mom never come to visit me? I knew why. It must have something to do with Dad. He sold me off first from visiting me. He was not my dad. He was a bad person, a monster. I wanted to kill him. I pretended that I hadn't heard the news. Every night I would cover my eyes. In secret, however, I began to plan my escape. Another Tuesday night, in a room without light. There was only pale moonlight. He and I, 2 people. Everything was exactly the same as 2 years ago, except the lack of a sinister smell in the air. I had long given up the fight, so he no longer needed something like that to subdue me. But this night wouldn't be the same as usual. He didn't expect me to pick up the chair and throw it at his head. He pushed me to the ground. Lee was outraged. He slapped me square in the face twice with both of his hands. I fell to the ground. Everything looked like a blur, and I didn't have any more strength to fight back. The chair only broke the phone behind him. I knew I had to be physically stronger to have a chance. But the horrible diet and the mental and physical torture I had been subject to was only making me weaker and weaker every day. The door opened. I didn't have to look to know it was Lee Myung-chol. He had seen the scene countless times. He isn't feeling well today. Shall we wait until another day? Hey, pigs were flying. When did he start defending me? I chuckled twice despite my bleeding lip. Who gave you permission to speak? Facing the rage of his uncle, the little bit of courage Lee Myung-chol had mustered up crumbled immediately. He walked out of the room in silence and closed the door behind him. Nothing had changed. Lee took off his belt and gave me an unusual lesson, followed by the usual routine. Nothing had changed. No, that wasn't true. Something had changed. I had changed. I was no longer the same kid from 2 years ago, even though I couldn't really remember. Nevertheless, I knew one thing for sure. Even if I became a pile of worthless human garbage, I would stay here forever. I wanted to go home. I had to go. Give me 1 second. What is that weird breathing noise for this side? Okay, whatever. I was lying still on my bed with my eyes closed. Oh, it's the respirator. That's why it sounds so weird. I could feel the breeze coming and going. The annoying mosquito kept interrupting my thoughts. Damn pest. I flicked the bloody body of the mosquito away like a little bugger. Dinner time. A small tray was pushed inside through the tiny window. A bowl of rice, a plate of cabbage, 2 pieces of fried chicken, and a banana. That is a weird selection of food. Why do I only get 1 piece of chicken? The fat man in the opposite cell yelled at the guard who was delivering the meals. He didn't get an answer. I picked up the banana from my tray and started peeling it. My diet had actually become much healthier ever since I had been sent here. I had never had a meal on time back in the police station, and the food was always burgers, chicken, fries, and occasionally leftovers that had been around for far too long. There had been a few times that I got to eat some nice meals, though, when Chang would bring over some of his homemade bentos. The kid would always say something like, "A healthy body is necessary to defend justice," which made him sound like a whiny old lady. But I was starting to miss that kid. I had no idea how he had been doing. He must be in a lot of trouble right now, or maybe not. The people who had framed me must be keeping him out of this case altogether. What had happened to Ming-Yun was all my fault. On the day I went to rescue Ji-Yeon, I had tried to get Ming-Yun to join the mission, but I hadn't been able to reach him. The kid had always been the one person who never missed a call. That was the first time ever that I couldn't find him. I should have realized that something might have gone wrong then. He never showed up at the police station afterwards either. I told Chang that Ming-Yun had been sick, but I honestly had no idea where he had been. It turned out he was dead, and his body had been hidden in my room. The murderer must have also known that it was the same day as the anniversary of the lieutenant's death. He even knew that I would be very drunk that day so that he had a better chance of success. 2 birds with 1 stone. I had no idea who the bastard could be, but I had no evidence at the moment. I needed to find a way to get out of here first. A tall shadow moved on the cell floor. He was watching me eat almost like he was monitoring me. His name was Young Kyok. Hyok? At least that was what I heard the other guards call him. He was over 2 meters tall and very muscular. He might be the most menacing person in the detention center. Oh, hello. How are you? Anyone who stood before him might feel like they were standing in front of an impenetrable wall. However, Young had a secret. Detention Center Number 6 was a prison that was used to exclusively hold police officers who had been in trouble. It did not belong to the police system, and that therefore was not under the supervision of the police Therefore, Everyone who had been thrown in here had to go through a ritual. The fat man in the opposite cell was locked up because of a 5 million won bribe. Every day he and I were forced to strip naked and were blasted by cold water. It wasn't that much different than a cold shower to me. But the fat man, he would be screaming bloody murder every time the water hit him. The more he screamed, however, the more excited the guards would get. For them, it had turned into a kind of entertainment. Young's reaction, however, seemed a little different than the rest of the trained mob. One of my best buddies was gay. I could sense the same vibe from him. The fat man yelled at me in a lowered voice. "Hey, can I trade this banana for your chicken?" "Screw you." I suddenly had an idea, but I needed somebody's help. 20 minutes later, Young came back to take the trays away. There was something extra in the tray, a small paper note. Now all I could do was wait until the middle of the night. 12 a.m. Most people here had fallen asleep, but I was sitting in a chair in the interrogation room that had seen numerous occupants. A piece of yellow tape covered my mouth. My hands had been cuffed behind my back. Many brand new scars had been added to the current collection on my body. I had made a mistake. Young was standing under the fluorescent light with a belt in his hands. His uniform was now soaking wet with sweat. Just a moment ago, the belt had hit me on my left eye, which was so bruised that I couldn't even open it anymore. I absolutely hated these simple-minded meatheads, especially when they could overpower me. If he had simply agreed to my proposal, I would have let my buddies find him a few handsome guys as thank you. Then everybody would have been happy. Now he was just torturing me for nobody's benefit. Well, since incitement had not worked out, that left me with only one other choice: threats. Although, how was I supposed to threaten him under the current circumstance? Should I summon that guy? It didn't seem like a good idea. Young seemed like he would never get tired. The pain he had inflicted on me was almost to the edge of trying my best to control it, but in the end he still woke up. The light from the swinging bulb cast some moving shadows on his impatient face. Idiot. I took out the pen and stabbed it into him. The pen went right through his eye socket and into his brain. He was dead in an instant. So was my consciousness. When I woke up, I found myself back in the cell. It was a different one this time, and there were more guards at the door. I felt my pocket as usual. There was another note. I opened it and it said, "Your clothes stink. I told them to get you 2 new sets." That bastard had landed me into such a big mess, and all I cared about was some clean clothes. I now had another life on my hands. Ming Yoon's Ming Yoon's case was still highly inconclusive, but this one was much more straightforward. I had indeed killed Young. How could this have happened? Damn it. let's try this. Oh, I forgot to turn the audio on. There you go. Now you can hear the music. Young was hit straight in the face by the chair. He had lost his voice with my bare hands, and he couldn't process what he was seeing. 1, 2, 3, I stomped his bloody face with my foot over and over again. I had once seen myself break another unfortunate bastard's arm with one stomp. If I kept going, he was going to die. I stepped away from the corner of the dark room and walked towards the center. The mysterious invisible force appeared again almost immediately. It was as if there were numerous dark hands that were pushing on my shoulders, grabbing at my ankles, trying to stop me from walking into the light and regaining control of my body. I was pushed down to the ground, but I kept my feet, my legs, and dragging me in the opposite direction. I could not give in. I would not give in. At last, I grabbed my feet. Enough, you bastard, get out of here. The hand suddenly scurried away. I could see clearly again. Young was crouching in the corner, a frightened little rabbit. I had scared him, and he had not realized that the person standing in front of him was a different one now. There was a wallet on the floor. It wasn't mine. I picked it up. There were a few bills, a credit card, and a receipt from a gay bar from only a few days ago, as well as a family photo. A beautiful wife, a loving daughter, what a happy family. The happy lady surely had no idea of the secret life that the husband and the father of the family had been leading. The little rabbit had no other choice. I plunged the pen deep into his throat. He stumbled back, pulled out the pen, and threw it onto the floor. Lots of blood was gushing out of the hole in his neck. I could see that he wanted to kill me very badly. However, with one hand covering his wound, he tripped and lost his balance, making a mess of his office. Soon he was lying on the floor with his eyes wide open, but that was too good for him. Before anyone noticed what had happened, I quickly searched the entire room. I found his hospital keycard, some cash, and a Swiss Army knife. I ripped his clothes and pants off of him and put them on myself so that mine wouldn't get bloody. Then I cut his thing off. I stuffed it into his mouth. In that moment, I felt so relieved. Even the air in the room felt suddenly cleansed. I opened the window and slid down the drain pipe. The security guard on duty was watching TV in his office at the main gate. I ducked down and snuck past his window, opening the main gate with a swipe of the keycard, and ran outside. Finally, I was free. Finally, I could go home. I walked all the way home with the flimsy clothes I was wearing. I walked past Alex's seafood store. I walked past Sumi's family bakery. I walked past a tobacco and alcohol store that had forgotten to lock up. I picked up the most expensive bottle of vodka from the shelf. It was for my dad. Twice a week, 8 times a month. Multiply by 12. 96. Times 2, 192. Let me round it up to 200. I was walking briskly. At the same time, I was quickly calculating how many times Mom had been hit by Dad for the past 2 years. Just an estimate. It was almost sunrise when I finally saw my familiar yet strange home. As I expected, Dad was sound asleep. I changed into Mom's favorite coat. Then I went into the kitchen and picked up the knife that Mom used to cut meat. At last, I came to my dad's bed. Dad, I'm home. 1, 2, 3. 66, 67. The sound of the knife going in and out of his body was almost a musical melody. 122, 123, 124, 199, 200. Blood was splattered all over the bed and the floor. It was disgusting. I sprinkled the vodka that I brought home all around the bed and the room. Then I lit a match. Bye, Dad. Bye, Mom. The small flame was jumping and growing. It was becoming bigger and to call home. I had never seen anything more beautiful. From the ashes, I would start a brand new life. Woo, I guessed that right. Okay. Let us do one next. I sat in the exam room of the hospital. My fingers kept tapping my knees. Because it was maybe it was because of my past experiences, but anytime I had to deal with a hospital, I would always worry about the worst outcome. After a long while, the doctor finally came in. He closed the door and sat in front of me. My hands clenched into fists. He opened the test results and read through them. Then he looked up from the document and stared at me. What is your relationship with her? The diagnosis is stomach cancer. I was stunned. It really was the worst outcome. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't really remember what the doctor had said afterwards. I took the test results and went back to the patient's room. I looked at her, still sound asleep. I wondered if she would keep sleeping like this. Maybe she would never wake up again. Yang Ying had told me her story. She had been all alone with no family for a long time, just like me. And now with this diagnosis, she would have to deal with this all by herself. I could see her bright eyes looking in. I crumpled the test results in my hand. That was a short letter. I think we need to make him have the stomach cancer, though. I sat on the steps of the hospital stunned. I thought the doctor was going to tell me about her condition, but he had given me the test results from my previous hospital stay. About a month ago, I had been in a fight with someone. I had been a little rusty and too hot-headed, and one of my ribs was broken. I had to ask for sick leave from the school because I had to stay in the hospital for a while. The doctor was very attentive. After I recovered, he suggested that I get a full physical. I realized that I hadn't had a physical for a long time, so I thought I might as well get one. Little did I know that I would be getting a surprise. It had gone dark outside now. I picked up the test results, got up, and went back to the patient's room. The nurse must have taken her temperature, as I saw Lee's hands hanging outside of the sheets. Her collar was messed up. I carefully tucked her hand back under the sheets, trying not to wake her up. She seemed to be dreaming. She suddenly turned her face to the side and mumbled something. Her face was only inches away from mine. I couldn't move for a sec. And I remembered what happened that day. I fainted in my apartment. Even though my heart had stopped and I hadn't been breathing, I had been conscious. I felt someone pressing my chest. I felt someone yelling my name. I felt someone. I knew it was her, but I couldn't move at all. No, actually, I could. But I was thinking perhaps I could just let go. and all this would be over. However, when I heard her crying, my heart suddenly bounced. My heart suddenly bounced, okay? All the strength I had, and saw her sobbing uncontrollably. Why would she care so much about someone who she barely knew? Why? And I suddenly realized the reason why I had cared about her so much. We were just like each other. We must have similar pasts. My strength started coming back to my body. I grabbed her hand as soon as I could so that I could tell her I was okay. I didn't want to see her sad. A buzz from my cell phone pulled me back from my thoughts. I had a text message. I walked out of the room, leaned on the wall in the hallway, and opened my inbox. It was from Yang Ying. She had received my text about my condition, and she wanted to see me at the coffee house later. I pressed the delete button. It had been a habit of mine for a long time. I always deleted my texts as soon as I read them. I would always get annoyed if I had too many texts in my inbox. There were 4 other texts left in the inbox. It's raining. Remember to bring an umbrella with you if you head out, Mr. Wan. Deleted. There is a book signing in the west entrance right now. I just bought a art collection book. I think it's going to be sold out soon, Mr. Wan. Would you like me to buy a copy? Deleted. The art show today was really cool. Thank you so much for the ticket, Mr. Wan. I'm in the gift shop near the north entrance right now. They have a lot of cute little things here. Are you coming today too, Mr. Wan? Deleted. Mr. Wan, I'm about to head back. Thank you again. Deleted. Was there really only one? Wow. Okay. I think Park's story is done, and I'm guessing Rocky's is done. Okay. Because, oops, there we go. Well, maybe not. I am missing this information on Rocky. Oh well, we'll figure it out. I opened my eyes. I saw a white ceiling. I saw white walls. I saw white blankets and beds, and I could smell the strong odor of detergent. How did I end up in the hospital? It was very late. There was no one in the hallway. I found the nurse station and asked for my record. It said I had gastrics. I never knew gastrics could make someone pass out. The nurse told me I was mostly fine. I just needed to take my medicine for a couple more days. But it was already too late to be discharged today, so I had to wait until tomorrow. She also mentioned that it was a middle-aged man who brought me in. Middle-aged man? Could it be him? Probably not. There are plenty of middle-aged men out there. Since I was mostly fine, I decided to go home anyway. I couldn't stay in this sight of the hospital for one more minute. I had too many bad memories of being in the hospital. A young man was standing at the hospital entrance looking down at the ground. Maybe he was feeling down because a family member had been sick too. I walked towards the subway station. At the last crossing, the light had just turned from green to red. I saw two people sitting next to the window in the coffee shop across the street, two very familiar people, Miss Yang and him. I stepped forward without even realizing it. I had forgotten about the red light. A truck charged directly at me from the side. Its headlights had blinded me. My entire body was swallowed by the light. The truck didn't stop after hitting me. I'd been left lying in the street when someone found me. Well, earlier, I was brought back to the hospital, but this time I wasn't mostly fine. I probably would not survive the night. I realized that I had so many regrets. Why couldn't I tell him how I truly felt? Why would I always have to be torn apart from the most important people in my life? These letters are getting pretty short, which is nice. Okay. 9 a.m. It was the last busy hour of the day in the coffee shop. I was wiping the glass carefully with a clean cloth. Mama, who loved and happily shared his feminine side, was sitting next to the bar and perusing a woman's fashion magazine while occasionally letting out a yawn. There was also a customer in a strange hat that had been here since we opened this morning. He put out a cigarette in the ashtray, put down an adult magazine that he brought with him, left his booth, and went into the guest restroom. There was no one else in the shop but the three of us. I had left Ray half a month ago. I didn't know where else to go, so I came back to Maple House. It still had the same decoration, but not the same people. Raji had gone back to India. Aang had become a legal resident and got married. On my first day back, I had told Mama everything about being auctioned off and abused, but I left out everything related to Ray. Mama was crying so hard that his entire face was wet. He hugged me so tight and told me of course I could come back, and I could stay here for as long as I wanted to. I tried to get back to a normal life. I wanted to save up a little money so I could bring Carlos over to live with me. Ring ring. A middle-aged man with a thick beard had just walked in. I was carrying a glass pitcher of water when I accidentally bumped into him at the door. Water spilled everywhere. I caught the pitcher 2 centimeters off the ground before it got smashed into pieces. He was carrying an umbrella with a long handle. It was raining heavily outside. My clothes were soaking wet. Water had spilled onto my clothes. The black dragon tattoo on my stomach became vaguely visible through my wet shirt. I apologized and turned around to go to the back room so I could change into another shirt. I'm in a hurry. I heard something else hidden inside his 4 short words. It was an extremely familiar sense of menace. Then I had noticed his umbrella out of the corner of my eyes. I didn't suspect anything earlier because of the rain, but now I realized that his umbrella was completely dry. I ducked. The meticulously painted walls were littered with holes from the gunshot. I dragged Mama into the kitchen. His fake eyelashes had fallen off. There was nothing but a bloody hole where his left eyeball was supposed to be. His and my blood was spilling all over the kitchen floor. Suddenly, I heard a flush come from the restroom outside and nothing else. He was so confident that he didn't even bother coming in to make sure that we were dead. The bearded man must be coming after me. He couldn't be here for any other reason but revenge. I had made a mistake. I should not have come back. I should not have I should not have expected to lead a normal life. Loudy, Mama, I'm so sorry. It was my fault. I apologized to the guest who had just come in, showed him to a booth, and poured him a cup of coffee. Then I went back to the door and started cleaning the wet floor. I then heard a flush come from the restroom. A guest with the hat walked out. He walked past the new guest's booth and went back to his own. He took out a ninth cigarette out of his pocket and put it into his mouth. Then I noticed a flame pop up near the end of his cigarette. I walked over with a mug. I whispered into his ear, "Excuse me, but this is a non-smoking establishment." If he were a fellow hitman, he would have understood. The guest with the hat heard my words, nodded gently, and put the cigarette back into the pack. The menace that had been brewing in the air suddenly dissipated. It wasn't a regular cigarette. There were probably some elaborate mechanism inside. I myself had never used gadgets that were too complicated. I did sometimes hear that some fellow workers in my field would often use some unusual murder weapons that I had never heard of. He probably wasn't here for me, but if he had insisted upon messing up the shop, the dagger under my skirt would have to stop him. The bearded man put down some cash on the table and left. Soon the guest with the hat gathered his cigarette pack. An adult magazine, gave me a nod, and left too. I soon noticed that I was being followed for the next few days. There was more than one table on me, and none of them was just some random slob. I couldn't tell if it had anything to do with the guest from that day. I asked Mama for some time off and decided to stay out of sight for a while. At the very least, I could not bring Mama into this. Excuse me. I was drenched in sweat because of the nightmares. Well, now that my clothes were already wet, I decided to just go home in the rain. I walked into the heavy rain. I walked towards the subway station. At the last crossing, the light had just turned from green to red. I saw two people sitting next to the window in the coffee house across the street, two very familiar people, Miss Yang and him. I stepped forward without even realizing it. I had forgotten about the red light. A truck charged directly at me from the side. Its headlights had blinded me. My entire body was swallowed by the light. The truck didn't stop after hitting me. I lay there in the street. The rain was so heavy that everything around me seemed blurry. I could feel the warmth of my body I could feel the warmth of my body washing away with the rain. I was getting colder and colder. I was freezing. I struggled and took the phone out of my pocket and opened the recording app. This time, no matter what, I had to tell him how I felt. "Mr. Wan, I think I'm dying. It hurts really bad. I wanted to tell you something. The day of the exhibit was actually my birthday. I haven't celebrated my birthday for years, so thank you for the ticket. I really wish that I could go see the rainbow in the mountains with you. It must be beautiful. Too bad I probably can't make it anymore. I want to leave you everything I have in my apartment. There are still many boxes of chocolate milk left. Don't let them go bad, please. I really liked your sketch. I was only kidding last time, and The phone fell out of my hand, and it kept recording the sound of the rainfall. Water had spilled on my clothes. The black dragon tattoo on my stomach became vaguely visible through my wet shirt. I apologized and then went and changed into another shirt in the back room. When I came back, both had left. A student noticed that I was being followed the next few days. Okay, nothing changed there. Are you going to the subway station? I nodded. Let me walk you there. I got an umbrella. He showed me the umbrella in his hand, and he squeezed out an unnatural smile. We stood on the platform, silently waiting for the last train of the day. Another young couple was there too. The headlights of the train lit up the tunnel. I was looking at the train and didn't notice what was happening behind me. When I heard the young couple scream, the young man who had walked me there had already laid down on the rails. The train kept running as if he wasn't there. I only heard a muffled noise drowned out by the wind. Okay. After this one, I'll just look up what the answer is. I apologized to the guest who had just came in, showed him to a booth, and poured him a cup of coffee. And then I went back to the door and started cleaning the wet floor. I heard a flash come from the restroom. The guest with the hat walked out. He walked past the new guest's booth and went back to his own. He took out another cigarette out of his pack and put it into his mouth. Then I noticed a flame pop out near the end of the cigarette. I walked over with the bearded man kept glancing over at us the entire time. He wasn't a regular guest either. The dagger under my skirt sheath. Our eyes met, and then I saw him raise his right hand. He pointed it at the guest with the hat and me. I had never suspected the umbrella would be his weapon. The guest with the hat reached for a cigarette pack, but it was already too late. Multiple deafening gunshots erupted. Dozens of bullets went through our bodies. Blood and flesh went flying off of us, painting the shop a bloody maroon. Okay, what is the answer? Okay. Okay. So it looks like it's raining heavily outside, and then There we go. Okay. I went back to the room and hid under the blanket. Even with my eyes closed, the detergent smell kept reminding me of where I was. I still couldn't escape those memories. In my earliest memories, my father was the only person I could picture in my mind. He was a great painter because every painting of his was great. As far as I could tell, as far as I could remember, we had always lived in a big house. It was so big that sometimes I couldn't even find my father. When I was in elementary school, we had moved into an apartment. Father and I often played with each other in the evening by throwing pillows. When I was in middle school, we had moved into a single-room studio. Most of the space was occupied by his paintings. A few pieces of furniture sat in the rest of the room. We would sleep on the floor when it was bedtime. The place was so small, and so many mornings I would wake up and realize I had crawled into my father's bed in the middle of the night. Life wasn't easy, but I was happy. Father began to take on more and more assignments, most of which were not in his style. He would always set up a fall asleep before he even returned home. We lived like that for 2 more years. Then at some point, I couldn't remember, Father started drinking. He spent more and more time inside and less time smiling. He would often tear up his own paintings too. That day, Father woke up early in the morning to watch a tennis match while he drank. Empty beer cans were all over the tables. His stomach hadn't been doing great in the first place, and the excessive drinking was not helping. I had a huge fight with him. I had never been angrier in my life, and I had never seen Father so mad either. Still, whatever he had said to me, he had done to me. I should not have said what I said. I hate you, Father. Those ended up being the last words I've ever said to him. When I came home that day, I found the TV on the same channel as it was in the morning. The commercial was on. There were paints all over the floor, and Father was lying in the middle of them, motionless. I was standing in the corner of the emergency room when I watched them cover his face with a piece of white cloth. They said there was no need for further medical assistance. Death felt so unreal to me at the time. I wasn't able to process any of it. I sat on the hospital bench in complete silence for a long time, until a doctor crouched down in front of me and softly said my name. I finally cried. I cried my heart out. I love you, Father, but he couldn't hear it anymore. I woke up and I couldn't tell where I had been in my memories. It had been blurred by my tears. I sat up in the hospital bed, sobbing uncontrollably. If only everything had just been a nightmare. A wrinkled blue jacket that smelled like paint was placed softly over my shoulders. He had come quietly put his arm around me. We sat there like this until the sun came out. I had spilled on my clothes. The black dragon tattoo was visible. I was about to apologize when I noticed the umbrella. It was a sunny day outside. He was the gun Mama had hidden underneath. Multiple deafening gunshots erupted outside the bar. The meticulously painted walls were littered with holes made by a shotgun. Mama was hunched over his magazine, nothing but a bloody hole where his left eye was supposed to be. I stood up. Sweat, tears, blood, and my makeup were smeared all over my face. Suddenly, I heard a flush come from the restroom. The door opened quietly, and a thin silver thread flew across the air and went through the forehead of the bearded man. before my bullet could. The thread morphed into a needle and pinned itself on the daily special menu on the wall. The guest with the hat walked gracefully out of the restroom with the adult magazine and left. But he left a business card on the table. It was a simple design, but unusual contact information on it. A few words were printed in bold on the thin white card. Zuko? Well, that's a lot of letters. Oh, there's another new person. Oh, lots of new people. Never seen a blacked out letter before. Let me explain. A letter will turn black when its precondition ceases to exist. So black letter means that the event inside the letter never happened. What is happening to Carlos might have something to do with his sister. Does that mean that something is happening to his sister might have an impact on Carlos? Yes, but judging from their letters before, I don't think they are writing to us at the same time. Alicia is 9 years older than Carlos, but both of their first letters were from when they were 18 years old. You're exactly right. That's why the events of Alicia's letter will have an impact on Carlos. What is happening to Alicia now happened in Carlos's past. Oh, I think I get it now. By the way, we will not be able to proceed the black out letters. As you can see, the other letter connected to it also is in a locked state. A locked letter means the other letters connected to it are blacked out. If you see a locked letter in the future, go and check the status of the letters connected to it. When you see a blacked letter, you may select it to obtain more clues. The clues are shown in the dotted black lines. The letter connected to these dotted lines are the reason the previous letter is blacked out. Knowing this, we can start by examining the letters first. Understood. Let me take a look at those letters then. Oh, here is one small tip. Remember what happened in Carlos's previous letter? If I remember correctly, it was about what happened in the auction house after he brought Yi there. Right, do you remember which ending you chose from him? Of course, he saved Yi and also managed to escape himself. Then what happened? Then, oh, he was taken away by the police, wasn't he? Yes, you could go and check again. Because of the impact from some other events, the ending might have changed. You mean that even within the same ending, the details of it could be changed at any time? Yes, such changes might happen in the non-ending part of the story too. It doesn't happen often, but if you pay attention, you might find it interesting. Okay, so these blacked out letters are related to Alicia's new story. And we have 2 new characters. Okay. I guess we will do Alicia's first. Mama didn't have any family in Hong Kong. A few regular customers and I held a funeral service in his name, but not many people showed up. There were some familiar faces, though. For instance, Ray. Throughout the service, we kept our distance, pretending not to know each other. People thought Mama died because he had been accidentally caught in the crossfires between some of his customers. They lamented his bad luck. However, I knew the truth about his death. It was because of me. It was all because of me. Half a month later, I began considering leaving this place full of nightmares and going back to Mexico. Yes, it was a famous local shopping center with an unusual name, and the prices in the center were even more unusual. I hadn't seen Carlos for so long, and I wanted to bring him something nice. But looking at these fancy men's coats, I couldn't help but be at a loss. It had been so many years, I didn't even know what size he would be wearing. I was sizing a brown coat against myself when I looked in the mirror. When I felt a sense of danger coming later at the southwestern corner, the discount department in the northwestern corner, the food court that sold juicy beef balls, and if I was an assassin of B+ level, they were probably around C-. Still, I was outnumbered. Besides, I didn't have my dagger or gun on me since I didn't expect I would need them. I pretended not to have noticed them and slowly walked towards the security stairwell in the northeastern corner. I tried to keep close to the other shoppers. However, the security stairwell turned out to be not so secure either. The only route left was to go towards the 4th floor. They were doing some renovation on the 4th floor. Construction materials were everywhere, but there was no workers around. But when I spotted a sniper with a rifle on the roof of the building across the street, I had to scratch my plan of escaping by the window ledge. I could hear footsteps of different sizes coming from inside the stairwell, even though they were clearly trying to keep it light. I had no choice but to hide in a storage room full of cleaning supplies. I sat down on an upside-down bucket, feeling defeated. I would always dream about the end of my life every time I went on a mission for Ray. I had the same kind of dream over a dozen times. Therefore, my current situation wasn't completely unexpected to me. I still felt a little choked up. I put my hand in my pocket, hoping to find a napkin. Instead, I found a wrinkled business card that was very suspicious by all standards. I half-heartedly texted a message to the number, asking Assassin Zuko for help. To my surprise, I soon received a reply, albeit an automatic one. This number only accepts messages in Morse code. Your message was not valid. Please edit and try again. That was interesting. My training did include Morse code, but I haven't used it for a long time. Let me think. It should be ... SOS sent. I got another response. ... Ads, short for address. They wanted to know where I was, but before I could respond, the people outside had shot the storage door full of holes. Strangely, I didn't die. Every day, people came in and out of the dungeon in which they were holding me. They tortured me in unleashing their profound hatred. They pulled off my fingernails, cut off my fingers and toes, and dipped my hands and feet into salt water. They burned me with red-hot iron pokers and poured boiling oil over on me. They had gouged out my eyes so I could only tell them apart from their voices. But they kept asking me the same question, "Who do you work for?" I would never tell them. I would take it to my grave. No, to my hell. Eventually, I could no longer tell who was torturing me anymore. My only regret was that I didn't have a cyanide capsule with me. However, there was this one young man named Red who had asked me once if there was anything he could do for me during his shift. He said he would try his best to do whatever I had asked, while and smiled. I have a young brother named Carlos. If you meet him someday, please be nice to him. Well, I didn't deserve to ask for forgiveness from the Heavenly Father. I was doomed to go to hell. The only wish left was that my brother would be well and happy. Morse code. That's an interesting human invention. What C is... Huh? Who am I talking to? Okay, we're just gonna look this up. Okay, so it is dash, dot, dot, dash, and then the last dash is at the end. Okay. X4 sent. X4 stands for X's fourth floor. There was no time to send something more specific. I didn't even know if they could read it. Boom, the entire storage room shook. I couldn't hear any people outside anymore, only the sizzling of burning flames. I pushed away the mob that had fallen on me and had been bombed by a fighter jet. The people there weren't able to escape from the attack. They were all lying on the ground, dead. The sniper across the street was gone too. I went to the floor and grabbed a hoodie in a nearby shopping stall. Then I followed the safest path to the Chungking mansions. I opened the door and the first thing I saw was an adult magazine. "You are breaking and entering." No. I was just reading in my good friend's home. "I am not your good friend." I had noticed the intrusion before I came in. Right now, the surprised visitor was sitting on my bed. He was holding an adult magazine from 3 months ago, and he had a sarcastic smirk on his face. "Well, would you like to be a good friend? Would you like to be my good friend then? Or, to be more precise, my associate?" "No thanks, I intend to leave Hong Kong soon. I miss Mexico so much. I miss Carlos so much." He tossed me a phone. I caught it and saw a list of names on the screen. Every name was followed by a photo and a series of digits. I was the 8th name on the list, and the number after it looked massive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. $2 million. Doesn't it look fantastic? Do you have any family? If so, it's time to cut them off. I tossed the phone back to him. I looked at him and sighed. Why don't you just kill me? Or why didn't you just kill me? You still owe me for the RPG. It was really expensive, and the $2 million is nowhere near enough to cover it. Bull, did anyone ever tell you that you were full of it? Fine. This is the real reason. He rolled up his sleeve and I saw a tattoo on his muscular arm. It was a little rabbit carrying a carrot. It's actually a number. Can you tell what it is? The folding ears of the rabbit, the carrot that was sticking out of his body, and the big feet, it was the 3? I believe you have something similar on you. I involuntarily touched the tattoo on my upper stomach. The dragon tattoo, I remember exactly what it looked like. It was also a number, 6. Zuko left. I collected all of my important possessions and put them into a small suitcase. I asked someone else to send all of the money I had to the orphanage anonymously. From here, I would never write another letter. I had nothing in my wallet but a business card. It was a simple design, but unusual contact information on it. Few words were printed in bold on the thin white card. Zuko, assassin broker. Send your resume to... Okay, so it did unlock. Cool. Oh, we have so many more letters. Okay. Oh. Whoops. Okay, so, yeah. Don't save. I'll fix this before. Or I guess we can fix it really quick. Load. Yes. Okay. Quickly go through this again. Okay. Why is this letter so long? Okay, so it was dash, dot, dot, dash, last dash. Okay. And then we'll do Carlos's and new person story letter, and then call it, so I don't accidentally mess up again before I do their story. Okay. Oops. Save. We will actually do a new save, I guess. Okay. Ugh. Okay. I sat on the bottom bed of the only bunk in the tiny room. I questioned of the moment. Why was I in prison? About half a day ago, in their petrol car and brought me straight here. Hong Kong Central Prison. No one would answer my questions, and they would beat me up whenever I showed any resistance. Then they would just throw me inside the empty room. There was nothing in there except a bunk bed, a wooden desk, a sink, and a toilet. They didn't even get a window. I suppose this was what they called a jail cell. Cell 28. Open up. The door opened from outside. Someone came in. Right, it must be a prank by Ren and the guys. They were probably just trying to give me a good scare. They must be getting me out now. However, the person that came in had a pale face, whiter than the wall, and a pair of lips redder than blood. They were also wearing a strange long robe. It was a ghost. I'd always been afraid of ghosts since I was a little kid. I jumped onto the bed and hid under the blanket, trembling in fear. Get out, your bed is the one on top. Don't lie on mine, how dirty. I heard a soft voice from outside the blanket. It actually sounded like a human. I climbed out of the bed and stood aside, watching the new person change into the prison uniform and wash himself. He seemed to be right at home. Soon the scary ghost had become a short young man with a clean haircut and an innocent-looking face. He was my cellmate, Hotaru. Although we had just met, Hotaru was a really easygoing guy, and he immediately told me everything about how he ended up here. Hotaru was from Japan. He had a long-term girlfriend from China. The only problem was that the girl came from a prestigious family. They didn't approve of Hotaru. However, they still kept seeing each other in secret. They would fly across the sea every once in a while just to be together. Eventually, they realized they could never receive her family's blessing, so they decided to elope. Unfortunately, just when they were finally ready to run away together, the girl was killed in an accident. Hotaru was devastated. Being so far away in Japan, he didn't even know what really happened to her. He came to Hong Kong and tried to talk to the girl's relatives and friends that he knew, hoping to piece together the clues. His efforts finally paid off. In the end, he learned one of her family members was responsible for her death. She was merely collateral damage in a vicious power struggle. Hotaru wanted to avenge her death, but he didn't have any power or any connection in this distant land. He had to seek help. He remembered a professional assassin he had known in Japan. He was famous for his creative ways of eliminating targets. Some people refer to him as the magician. He also had a strange hobby: old adult magazines. Hotaru was able to find out the magician happened to be in Hong Kong at the time too. However, hiring him required lots and lots of money, which Hotaru didn't have. Hotaru began to do everything he could for money. He dabbled in some illegal activities. Eventually, he was caught and thrown into prison. He still wouldn't stop. To him, the prison was just another society, not unlike the one outside. It was populated by plenty of residents with all kinds of different values. It wasn't just the guards or the wardens. Some of the prisoners might have unusual and powerful backgrounds behind them. Hotaru hustled among these people. He was willing to do anything and everything for a profit. He smuggled contraband, he traded information with the prisoners, he gambled with them. He bribed the guards, complimented them, sometimes even sold his own body. Hotaru said as long as he could get his revenge, he didn't care about himself at all. He began to choke up. I was so angry after hearing his story. I was also feeling both admiration and sympathy towards Hotaru. If I was in his shoes, I probably wouldn't be able to do what he had done. Unfortunately, I had no more than a few $100 on me, and that was all I could give him for now. I believed every word Hotaru had told me. The next day during lunch, I was mocked relentlessly by the other prisoners. Son, you should be thankful you only had a few $100 on you. I told you he was going to fall for it. Hurry, hand me 100. Hand me my 100. What kind of story did he tell you this time? Deceased parents? Although he had said, not entirely. Although what he said, haha, it's not entirely made up either. I heard 9 guards out of 10 here have played around with him. I was so angry, I dropped my spoon and ran back to my cell. Arturo was sitting on the bed with his legs crossed, making a pyramid out of poker cards. You lying bastard, give me back my money. Arturo paid me no attention. He put 2 more cards on top of the pyramid. The mini TV was playing a Japanese prank show near his knees. The sound of laughter came out of the TV right on cue, as if they were mocking me too. I stepped forward and turned off the TV. You monster. I dragged him off the bed angrily. The pyramid of cards collapsed and they scattered all over the floor. The air in the cell seemed to be suddenly frozen. People began gathering right outside the cell. A tall, strong guard walked in through the crowd. I recognized him. He was the one who had taken my mugshot when I come in and searched my belongings. I seemed to recall that he was from the UK. Everyone called him Morgan. I was about to tell Morgan what had happened when he punched me right in the face. Arturo wasn't completely lying, at least. Everyone in here might have some kind of unusual background behind them. Why was I so unfortunate? Not only did I end up in prison, I also had to live with such a bastard of a cellmate. Lord, was this part of your trial for me? Ugh, these letters are getting so long now. 5 years wasn't really a long time, but when I looked down from Hong Kong from the airplane window, all I could remember was some fractured memories about the city. Everything I could remember about Hong Kong seemed to connect to a coffee shop called Maple House. However, when I finally found the old address of the coffee shop, there was only a real estate agency in the location. I tried asking around the neighborhood, and people told me that the merchant of the coffee shop had died in an accident. They also said a few regular customers had tried to keep the shop open in his name, but the landlord had refused to extend the lease. That meant that I didn't really have a reason to stay in the city any longer. I felt a little disappointed. Nevertheless, instead of wandering the streets aimlessly, I might as well go back to the UK sooner. My mental condition hadn't been very stable recently. If I suffered an attack here, my doctor friend half a world away wouldn't be of much help. For example, just earlier. No, actually, I couldn't even tell how much just earlier really was. As far as I could remember, it had been a clear night. I was walking out of the alley in front of the coffee shop when I pulled my blazer tighter around myself. It was quite dark in the alley, except for the pale white moonlight shining down from above. I unintentionally looked up at the moon. Then, all of a sudden, I felt the moonlight getting whiter and brighter. It was almost blinding. After a deafening moment of buzzing in my ears, I blacked out. When I woke up again, I found myself lying in the bed of the hotel room I had booked. On the other side of the same bed, another man with a scruffy face and long hair was lying down, snoring loudly with no inhibitions. Who was this man? Had he brought me back here? How would he even know I had been staying here? I nervously rummaged through his luggage. Besides a camera and some daily necessities, I also found a passport and a work ID. Apparently, he was a policeman from Korea, maybe here as a tourist. Perhaps he was just a good Samaritan who decided to return the lost item he found by the road. After I calmed myself down, I realized I was still wearing the same clothes, and the germs on the bed from the other man were both making me feel quite uneasy. In any case, I couldn't call for room service before I left, so I decided to change first. I changed into my clean clothes and walked into the main room. I sat down and sank deep into the soft couch. The digital clock on the table said that it was almost 9 p.m. on Tuesday night. I decided to think about something before the man woke up. I used to want to become a doctor, but I never did. The reason was that while I had been studying for the qualifications, I discovered that I had a serious condition. It was called selective cognitive dissonance. It was a hereditary disease. A person who suffered from this disease would selectively manipulate their own memories about people and events based on their own psychological cognition. I will be back in a sec. Okay, I am back. Simply put, their own brains would tamper with their memories without their realizing it. To realize that all of my memories might not be accurate or even true at all. I was terrified. I couldn't stop myself from second-guessing the truth of my own memories. I was in the UK at the time, and I had a psychologist friend. He helped me by treating me with hypnosis therapy. The treatment allowed me to forget the unpleasant memories from my past. He told me that I was an entirely different person after the therapy. Afterwards, I had a good few years, but there were some side effects too. I couldn't remember what my parents looked like, nor where my home was. For the past 2 years, there had also been some serious reactions too. Some fragmented, horrifying images would suddenly flash before my eyes, and I would feel severely sick or even pass out. My friend told me that the hypnosis might be wearing off, or that my condition might be deteriorating. Whatever the case, we decided to do another session after I finished my trip and returned to the UK. I was staring at the TV opposite the couch when I sensed an unexpected chill spread over my entire body. It felt like the entire room was spinning, and I could hear nothing but an overwhelming buzz in my ears. At the same time, a number of unimaginable visions were swirling throughout my mind. I could feel it. I could feel a crack opening in my brain, and something sticky, rotten, and pitch black was coming out of a cocoon. I was having a relapse. I held my arms tightly around myself. I knew I was about to completely lose control. There was a knife on the nearby desk, I could see my own reflection in the blank TV screen. My face was gradually overlapping with some of the gruesome visions in my head. It was too late. I remembered everything, my parents' faces, my home, and my hellish childhood. The buzzing in my ears and the spinning were morphed into excruciating pain, pinching every single nerve in my body. Those bloody memories and the cruel truth that they implied were pushing me to the brink of my sanity. If I was on that edge, my illness would take over my mind and push me over the cliff. And then history would repeat itself. I do not want to become someone I hated again. I cannot, I refuse. I must stop myself. I picked up the knife on the desk and stabbed myself in the throat at the perfect angle and the perfect depth. I could not afford to leave anything to chance. Goodbye, Dad, Mom, this world, child. Is it Park? Is this Park as he's older? I angrily dragged him off the bed. I grabbed the knife on the desk and held it against his pale, tender neck. The pyramid of cards collapsed as they scattered over the floor. The air in the cell seemed to have suddenly frozen. Toru said he would give me back my money the next day. However, on the next day, not only did I not see a penny of my money, I was moved into another cell. Since then, I would often find my food tickets gone. I got an achievement. Or my uniform thrown in the toilet stained with filthy things. But my new cellmate was a huge meathead, and I didn't dare complain to anyone but about him. The Toru never returned my money, but somehow I found myself missing him a little. I could see my own reflection in the blank TV screen. My face was gradually overlapping with the gruesome images in my head. It was too late. I remembered everything, my parents' faces, my home, and my hellish childhood. The buzzing in my ears and the spinning were morphing into excruciating pain, pinching every nerve in my body. Those bloody memories and the cruel truth that they implied were pushing me to the brink of my sanity. On edge, my illness would take over my mind and push me over the cliff, and then history would repeat itself. I did not want to become someone I hated. I must stop myself. I pulled the window open and looked down to the I looked down to the ground 15 floors below. I stepped over the bars and fell to the concrete. I could not afford to leave anything to chance. Goodbye, Dad, Mom, and this world. I just hope in the next life I could be a good, healthy child. The policeman was no longer asleep. He was standing at the door to the bedroom. He was holding his head in his hands and looked confused and neurotic. He looked at me if I had just done something despicable to him. However, I was the one who was really losing control. The images of him screaming monster at me lingered in my brain. Those horrifying fragments of memories were beginning to become even clearer. I couldn't control myself. I chuckled, then laughed, and then screamed. I felt some changes happening inside me, something not quite right. To make sure I could still control myself, I lunged at him. We were tangled together, hitting each other as hard as we could with our fists and feet. I needed to relieve what was spilling in my mind in the most primal way. I pushed his head away with my hand and slammed it into the TV screen, which then shattered into pieces. But I didn't win the fight. The black barrel of a gun was pushed up against my left temple. The person who was holding the gun had the same face as the policeman, but I could see something different, something much more frightening. You're a monster. He pulled the trigger, and those were the last words I ever said in this world. I looked at the fruit knife and I had an idea. I decided to swallow my anger for now. Later that night, I was lying on the top bunk waiting with my eyes open. Hitoru turned in his sleep. Squelch. Bang. The entire bed shook violently and I heard a panicked scream beneath me. I looked down for feigning ignorance. The bottom bunk only had a metal frame left. There were a few broken pieces of wood on the floor, and the screws that I had loosened up earlier were lying innocently in the corner of the cell. Hitoru sat on the floor in shock, still processing what just happened. Haha, you sucker. Back in the orphanage, there had been a fat little kid who always bullied me. I once taught him a lesson in the same way. Although I was scolded by Alicia, I still felt really good. They needed a week to fix the bottom bunk. In the meantime, Hitoru was temporarily moved to another cell. Being in the cell alone was quiet, too quiet. I used to sleep in the top bunk in the orphanage, and Alicia would sleep on the bottom one. It wasn't a sturdy bunk bed. Alicia would have to hold the bed every time I climbed up. Otherwise, it felt like the bed would immediately topple over. Oh, how I wish I could find her sleeping down there. When I woke up, I flipped the wet pillow, laid my head on it, what to do next. Okay, hopefully this gives me the good ending. The image of the woman on the TV hysterically screaming monster lingered in my eyes. Why was I having such a strong reaction to this word? A few blurry visions were beginning to come together in my head. Some of them were starting to become even clearer. There was a room without light, a man who looked like a doctor, and me as a child. He was a monster, and his actions destroyed my sense of self. When we clashed with each other, only one could survive. I felt some changes happening inside me. It felt so good, as if a group of people had been tolerating a smoker in a closed space, and then the smoker was suddenly killed by a falling meteor. I left the hotel. Oh, I got another achievement. I walked in the middle of the street under the pale moonlight. I used to believe God was real when I was a kid. That happened to me. People like me, we didn't really need a god, we just needed a dagger. I decided to stay in Hong Kong. There must be a girl like me. Whoa. Hey, it is Park. I guessed right. Okay. We are going to call it here, I guess. Like I said, I have things I need to do today and was not expecting to stream almost 2 hours. So, I will see you all next week. Have a good day. Bye.